sitting on the dais with very qualified, able, just great colleagues. And I'm thankful for the colleagues we have on the city staff as well, who serve Rochester ably. We always begin with an open comment period. It's an opportunity for people from the public to speak on items that we won't be taking public testimony on later in the agenda. Each person has up to 4 minutes to speak, and only 2 people are signed up this night. I'd request each speaker be concise to allow as many people as possible. If more choose to speak, your comments should be directed toward me as the acting city council president, because we won't be responding to anything that is said in this time, but instead we'll respond later, especially staff follow up. If there's anybody who wants to speak from online, I will depend upon the clerk for letting me know that. So I will let the speakers know when their time is nearing an end. We have a couple of ways to do this. There must be a way to turn this on. I'll just tell you when. It's on? Okay.
It doesn't go to green until they start speaking.
Very good. Thank you. So we have 2 speakers tonight. Gail Madison, please. You have 4 minutes. Please introduce yourself.
Gail Madison, Rochester resident. Last month I came before you, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman and the council members. Last month I came before you to share with the public my concerns surrounding the lack of transparency to the citizens. It's specifically to do with my FOIA request on the cell phone records. It's really a sad thing that we're to the point that probably the only way I'll ever get them is probably through a subpoena, but the people that did not share them, and I asked specifically, and I filmed Mr. Spindler Craig texting during our city council meetings, Mayor Norton, Allison Zelms, of 2 which none of them really gave anything substantial reply. And by the way, there was an email that floated around thereafter my comments that I was privy to. And Mr. Spindler Craig, it's a shame that you spoke the way that you did to Molly Dennis. I had not spoken to her prior to my FOIA request, and to go through conspiracy theories and accusations was really shameful, very unbecoming of the role that you're playing in our community. During the 12th century Spain, there was a great humble king, Ferdinand, also known as King Saint Ferdinand III, whom I recognize as my some 23rd, 24th great grandfather. And not that I could ever follow in his footsteps. In studying his life, he embodied the true character of a public servant and a leader, and one who deemed it important to never cheat the public in their tax dealings. Fast forward to our local public servants before us, whose actions frequently stand in stark contrast to the great king. I ask of those of you before me, what are you to gain by shirking your responsibility to those of us looking to you for answers? Why hide your actions during our meetings while I filmed you? Shirking one's accountability to represent taxpayers is lacking to the point that sometimes I see it as a dereliction of duty. If only the public knew or understood how close we are to tyranny, they'd be lining up here on the city steps. Slogans and acronyms that have been tossed around here in city council in our community, things like 2030, data city data alliance, smart 15-minute cities in the Green Deal are really disturbing to me when the public doesn't know a fraction of what that means. It is unlikely the average person in our midst or in our community even recognizes the darkness behind some of these agendas. When we hear this 2030 from our city council members in Rochester's or others, what does that mean? 2030, UN Agenda 2021, now UN Agenda 2030. The late Rosa Quare, butchering up her name, Quare has a website, Democrats Against the Agenda 21. And she had the book, the Behind the Green Mask, in which she specifically is spreading the news surrounding the issues of public policies intended to strip people of their individual rights. That's 2030, what you guys are throwing around. 15-minute cities and smart cities. I asked, what common citizens are the gain besides being surveilled and enslaved in the most unimaginable ways? I urge everyone to educate yourselves to what's to come. In my handout, And when I talk about more smart cities too, I want to kind of jump to, because I'm running out of time, to the Green Deal. North Carolina trees are feeding Europe's clean energy revolution. Forests in North Carolina are being chopped down, ground into shavings, and shipped across the ocean to Germany, where they are burned for green energy. This is a money grab and another scam that's happening upon us taxpayers. Who are these city co-designers, unelected people catapulted to our local boards, such as Parks and Recreations, that can impose taxes for initiatives
15 seconds.
we know little about nor voted to have imposed on our communities? People of the likes of Bloomberg, who dropped $1 million grant into, yet has seemingly receives a healthy return on investment through companies you all do not know that he operates here in Minnesota. Sounds like a pretty good return on investment on $1 million
Your time
deal.
has elapsed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Casey McGregor.
Good evening. Hello, Council and Mayor. Casey McGregor. I would like to continue our conversation about the cannabis bill. This awful piece of legislation allows for #1 max priority distribution of cannabis. I'm going to highlight 3 things today. 1, cannabis and the volume you can grow. Did you know that the fine for 16 plants is only $3,000? The fine for 24 plants is only $10,000. Maybe chance of jail, but Democrats are expunging everybody's record that grew over 100 plants. So do I believe a judge will put anybody in jail for this? No, I don't. Over 24 plants, I don't know what the fine is because the Democrats didn't label anything higher than 10,000. Number 2, Minnesota Constitution, Section 13, Article 7, quote, no license required to peddle. Any person may sell or peddle the product of the farm or garden occupied and cultivated by him without obtaining a license therefore, unquote. Just as I can grow tomatoes and sell them to you, I could grow cannabis and sell that to you. The Minnesota Constitution trumps any ordinance you could write. This legislation opened up the cannabis market max distribution. Number 3, the CBD shops that now sell THC, which everybody is saying is so benign. You don't understand. In 2025, the 5 milligram THC dose requirement goes out the door with the products that will come in to have 70. Let me repeat that, 70 conventional whole joints in 1 micro hit, turning people into zombies at this strength. What I would like to see the council do is put a CIA in ASAP for an ordinance instructing that there be no THC cannabis or venues can be located within 2,000 feet of all schools, daycare centers, rehab, and AA facilities and churches with a fine of $50,000 or greater. If this city doesn't take this serious now, you will allow Pandora's box to open and it will never be able to close. I urge everyone sitting at the dais and the city attorney to call the ANC Foundation, the Anti-Narcotic, Anti-Addictive Drug Coalition Foundation. You cannot just get your information from attorneys that are pro-cannabis. That would be detrimental to our city. Now moving on. F10 in tonight's packet, $28,480 for part-time work for a monthly salary. This would just be shy of $700,000 for a full-time position. We, the people, want to hear the city's explanation on how they can justify paying one person $28,480 a month for 15 hours worth of work a week. The council is our liaison to the city, and this is what we, the people, are requesting an explanation on this contract. F11, what are the co-designers? There is no clear public access to the information they produce. Why is there no transparency? I would like a follow-up response to the following questions. Number 1, who are the co-designers? Number 2, who pays the co-designers? Number 3, who selects the co-designers? Number 4, are the minutes and meetings recorded? Are they open to the public? Number 5, how do you get to become a co-designer? Is there an application process? Number 6, are co-designers a shadow government? Because the lack of transparency, it really makes one wonder. This is also the Bridge to Nowhere project. The DMC has spent millions of taxpayer dollars. Local people and businesses have seen very little. We have Discovery Square office buildings, which are supported by DMC filling up, while 150,000 square foot of private space sits empty outside of the
15
DMC
seconds.
area. At the moment, even DMC area kind of looks a little vacant. Why would we build this bridge at this day and time with the interest rates as they are? Final thought. I hope the city has worked out the kinks in the system
Your time's
On-
elapsed.
on getting the council meetings on the television for our seniors, and if not, why? Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Are there any other people who'd like to make public comment? The public comment period is closed. Clerk Geisler, please call the roll.
Councilmember Keen,
Here.
Councilmember Bransford,
Here.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick,
Here.
Councilmember Palmer,
Here.
Councilmember Dennis,
Here.
Council President for the moment, Wall,
For the moment, here.
Mayor Norton.
Present.
Thank you very much. We will have the administrator's report. Administrator Zelms, please.
Thank you, Acting Council President Wall, council members, Mayor Norton, members of the public. I did just have a couple of things that we wanted to cover today. And as always, we start, and this time it's really there, with the customer service principles from our teammates: respect, integrity, safety, and excellence. They are always working to provide services in that way. And to that end, I did just want to point out that we have a couple of important reminders that just came out about the excessive heat that's happening this week. So the public library is a cool place to be, as are the beaches and swimming pool at Silver Lake. This year, while Soldiers Field is under construction, Salvation Army's Community Center is open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rochester Public Transit also provides free rides for folks that say that they need a place to be cool. And then a number of tips have come out from Rochester Public Utilities. We have actually canceled a couple of events. The Rochester Public Library has canceled all outdoor activities through Wednesday. So the book bike and the bookmobile activities. Safe City Nights, unfortunately, was canceled for tomorrow evening when it's expected to be very, very warm. And then I have a slide coming up about the Civic Music Forward concert series, but folks should pay attention later in the day tomorrow as they make a final decision about whether or not that will move forward, or whether we might need to pivot in some way if that's an option for us. So folks should just stay safe out there. It may not feel as warm as it actually is. And obviously we want people to be able to be safe. We send that out in partnership with the county. Also, we have a couple of open houses coming up. These are indoors. So Tuesday, August 22nd, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. at 125 Live, and Thursday, August 24th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at 125 Live. We have some zoning map update opportunities for the community to connect with our teammates in community development to understand what some of the recommended changes are that will be coming forward. Again, I mentioned that we're in to the 2 more free concerts, hopefully a series of the Forward concert series. If we aren't able to pivot the Wednesday outdoor activity, it is possible that we would be canceling that, but we will keep people notified. They should check our website, check social media, and look at the Civic Music social media feeds tomorrow after 4 p.m. to understand what we've been able to do there. Also, coming this week on Wednesday, August 23rd, there is the first set of clinics, or this next set of clinics that are scheduled from Olmsted County to be able to provide back to school vaccines to the uninsured or underinsured. That will be taking place 8:30 to 4 p.m. on the 23rd and on September 7th. So that will be happening at the East Campus 2100 Campus Drive in Rochester, Minnesota, where the Olmsted County Public Health is located. So just want people to be aware of that opportunity. And then we do have the next set of the Thursdays Alive After 5 happening over at the Mayo Civic Center campus, the outdoor patio area. That's coming up this Thursday, the 24th, 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. So folks should be able to head over there and check that out. We should be out of the heat advisory by then. And then just wanted to highlight a couple of things that have been coming forward from our teammates in the Parks Department. Obviously, the accelerated park referendum investment has provided some opportunity for reinvestment in different neighborhood parks. So playground equipment enhancements are completed at the 7 parks listed: Silver Lake East, Smetka, Meadow Park Estates, Quarry Hill West, at Elton Hills, Fox Valley, Elton Hills Run. And there is a project pending in Slattery, and there are 8 remaining scheduled projects in 2024. So that's that park referendum and the accelerated projects that were funded. And then court improvements at 8 of 11 area parks are complete. So Elmcroft, Goose Egg, the Judd, MLK, Kutzke, the Bamber Road, Scenic Oaks, Elton. This took a lot of time to shove them all together, and Wedgwood. So different types of improvements at each of those in order to improve that experience. And these are basketball courts. And then the pending project is Allendale and Fox Valley. There are 3 additional that are scheduled in 2024 and 1 in 2025. So making a lot of progress there. And the Parks team is also updating their project website to be able to keep folks more up to date about what they've been able to complete and provide to the community with the park referendum that the community approved in 2020. So that's what I have for today. And with that, I would turn it over to the mayor. Well, back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Elms. And Mayor Norton, we welcome your report.
Thank you. And I don't have any slides today, so you're stuck with me. I would say just a couple of things. It's been, it's right before school starts. There's always a wonderful, array of activities to end the summer and prepare for the school year. So this last weekend was back to school day. The city had a booth, and I participated in the parade on behalf of the city and was at the booth for a couple hours and was really impressed. They had twice the crowd this year. The city handed out some notebooks for the kids to help them, and pencils and pens to get them ready for school. So it was a really exciting event. I waved to Councilwoman Kirkpatrick as I drove by. So that was fun. Lower Town had their Lower Town Festival this weekend, so that was fun. I think a number of us popped over into that. And I had an opportunity to go over to both UMR. They had a student leaders event, so I spoke to the group of UMR leaders. Through that conversation, I may have an intern that'll come help me throughout the year who's very interested in student health and liked the idea of some of the healthy community stuff I've been working on. So that was fun. And then the Rochester Police Department held a summer youth leadership camp for 3 days. And so I went and spoke to a group of youngsters about leadership and the police and our relationship between the mayor's office and the police department. So that was really a wonderful opportunity. So a couple of things I wanted to let you know. One is the Move with the Mayor will be September 1st through September 30th. So I would just encourage all of you to, if you can, sign up on the website. We'll be getting that information out and log your minutes of exercise. It's down, as you don't even have to do it 6 weeks. It's only 4, so you can do it. But join me in your gardening minutes, your lawn mowing minutes, your exercise minutes, and let's see if we can't get more of the community involved. They are using the app again, but we had I don't know if you've seen it yet, but we did a coloring book for youth about our parks and physical activity. And there's a hand entered option for people's youth as well as adults for those who can't or don't use the internet. So we've tried making it as readily available to everyone as we can. And this is something I've been doing now for a number of years. And I'm also working on a Mayors Against Childhood Hunger. And so as these things keep coming up, and we live in America's City for Health, and health is part of what we do, the CDC and the White House have started a challenge. So I'm putting all these activities that I've been working on and we've been doing under one umbrella, and it's the White House Challenge to End Hunger and Build Healthy Communities. So I'm kind of putting it under that, and we're going to participate in that for the coming 2 years. So we'll kind of be focusing on, eating healthy, continuing to exercise. We're going to be hosting some blood pressure checks at some events around the community. Latino Fest will be one. So just promoting healthy living. So I just wanted you to know that's kind of all going to be put under one umbrella for the next 2 years, rather than so many disparate things to talk about. We're going to just talk about it under that initiative, the strategy that they have. So you'll be seeing more about that starting September 1st. And lastly, you knew I went to Scranton for the mayor's, I say that Scranton, I say it's poor people, I keep saying it that way, for the Mayor's Innovation Project meeting, and it was a wonderful meeting, well attended, really great dialogue and discussion. So the four big topics were the city's role in private sector job quality, and I got to moderate that one. The electric city transitioning to an EV fleet, sunshine in the city, fiscal transparency and community trust, and ensuring tenant protections and rental housing quality. So those were the four main topics that we talked about over 2 days. We also got to tour the town and look at, they're an old community, an old mining community. I did not go on the mine tour, wasn't interested in going underground. Some people did, but I did do the redevelopment tour. So we went and looked at their really old buildings and how they're completely transforming blocks and neighborhoods through redevelopment. And developers have really grabbed a hold of that there. And it just made me really think about what we're doing here in this community and hoping we get the kind of interest by developers that they're getting, because it's really exciting what's happening there, turning these ancient old buildings, revitalizing them, turning them to housing and kind of almost like a city in and of itself in some of the areas in neighborhoods that have been really run down. So I'll just show you quickly. The Mayor's Innovation Project puts together a full booklet for each of us on each of those four topics. So if any of those four topics were of interest to you and you want to know a little bit more about the presentation, the information they shared, I have them. I'd be happy to loan them out. I have not, I sat through the workshops and participated, but I have not read these yet. But they really do a nice job putting it in concise fashion. So I'm going to have these in my office. If anyone would like to look at any of those four topics and thumb through, you are more than welcome to do that. And I'll try to go through my notes and bring more information, maybe in the form of an email to you about some of the aha moments that I had while I was there. I just haven't had a chance to do that yet. So lots coming up in the coming weeks, as I said, with school starting, lots of activities going on, and there'll be some more, I guess, announcements of activities at the city. The administrator shared a lot of stuff that's happening. There's more coming shortly, and we'll share those in the coming weeks. I think the next meeting will be a good time to kind of lay out some of the stuff, and hopefully you'll all be able to join me in attending some really fun activities that the city's doing over the next month or so. So that's it.
Thank you, Mayor Norton. Turning to the order of agenda, outside of some F items that we'll get to momentarily, I have heard nothing to change the order of agenda. Are there changes of which we should be aware?
I'd like to move to approve the order of the agenda.
Second. Second,
No discussion.
any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Our agenda is established. We turn to the consent agenda. It is my understanding from previous communication that Councilmember Dennis would like to pull F7, F9, F10, and F11. Are you still desiring to pull those four?
I would like to still do, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda F1 through F6, F8, F12, F13, and F14?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Keen,
Oh, nothing to add.
any discussion? All in favor of passing the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That is complete. We turn to our public hearings. We have just one public hearing tonight. And I need to pull it up. And I believe Elliot Mueller will be presenting for us. Is he online?
Yep, I am here. Good evening, Council President, Mayor Norton, and members of the City Council. My name is Elliot Mueller with.
We can't hear you.
You'll have to turn your mic up. Testing, testing.
As we have seen before in this council, electronics will save us and kill us.
I apologize for that. Can you hear me now?
Better.
little better.
Little better. Okay. I'll just
That's
try to
better.
talk really loud.
There you go.
Okay, good. Thank you. Good evening, Council President, Mayor Norton, and members of the City Council. My name is Elliot Mueller with Rochester Community Development, and I'll be giving the presentation or just introducing CD 2023-006 ZC by Olmsted County. The property at which you're seeing on the screen right now is located at 1188 and 1515 50th Street Southeast. And the request is to change the zoning district designation of an approximate 84-acre site from R1 mixed family or mixed single family and R2 single family small lot to light industrial. The proposed
I apologize again. Let me know. Okay. Approval of this request would allow for the expansion of the current use of Olmsted County's public works operations. And the Planning Commission forwarded a recommendation of approval unanimously. And the underlying land use is industrial, and the zoning district of LI light industrial would be a better suit, just to make it more compatible in this area. With that, I'll stand in for any questions you might have.
Thank you. Is the applicant or a representative of the applicant here to speak? Then we have public comment. Oh, there is someone.
Hello, this is Alex Schrader. Hi, City Council members, Mayor, City Council President. I don't have anything to add. Thank you, Elliot, for the explanation. And thank you, everybody, for the consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Schrader. Is there anybody who wants to speak from the public? In that case, the public hearing is closed. Are there any questions from the council members?
Just one question for staff. What is the motivation for making this change? Is it just alignment, or is there something to be built?
Thank you for that question, Councilmember Keen. The property right now has a site development plan under review for expansion of the public works.
Okay,
facility.
okay, that helps. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Second. Anything to add? Ms.
No,
Grant?
thank you.
Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. That is passed. We are moving right along. We are to the H, reports and recommendations, and we will consider the 4 F items that have been moved to H. The first is F7, the use of contingency funds for contract with Best Crowd Management. Ms. Dennis, would you like to offer a brief reason why it is that you have pulled this item?
Well, thank you so much. I will try to make it brief. I guess I
That's
also
my note say, brief.
brief.
We'll have plenty of time for discussion.
Well, I have my ADHD timer right here. I often I put on just so I can monitor time. So I will make sure I don't go over. No, I want to say this is an incredibly short council meeting, and perhaps because President Carlson is not here. But what I pulled this for a couple reasons. One, but I just mentioned that I did receive an email just between the study session, which ended late, and this council meeting that had some notes on a few of these items, F7, F9, and F10. So I did read that over during, instead of eating supper, reading this over. I see that it's been sent to all council meeting members from the city administrator for information symmetry. And I just want to say thank you, because I think that is needed. I would just like to note that in the future, it might be good to send the questions like that are just wonderful questions, whoever asked these questions right away, so that answers are done prior, like before we even pull items, might be good in the future. But the one thing I brought, so it clarifies, we have $1 million in contingency funds. It doesn't say how much we have left. And so I don't believe it does. I read it quickly, but that is an issue that I just wanted to address, that we spend so much time on every dollar of the contingency on certain items, and then voting, to approve something that I'm not even sure is needed. I guess I just wanted to ask if this is something that maybe RPD could do, or we could do it in-house instead of spending money from our contingency fund that I believe should be used for emergencies or special projects that merit that. So those are some of my questions.
Okay, Ms. Elms.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Council President, council members. I would just note that the email was actually sent at 11:15 this morning, which was from questions that I received this morning from multiple different council members. And so it's impossible to send the question and an answer before I receive the question or the answer. However, I would just also point to the council action on F7, the second page of that item indicates that the July 31st, 2023 available balance of contingency funds was $728,900. Use of the requested amount of funds will leave an available balance of $681,914.88. So that was already in the packet. And the other thing that I would note is that as presented during the update from the public safety team, they indicated that this downtown safety initiative as part of the downtown task force was important, and it's working in partnership with parking management, both our city parking management teammates, the operators of the parking management system through contract, Best Security, and Rochester Police Department. So they all work in tandem on this, and the overnight activity that Best Security Management provides is during a time frame that we don't have dedicated support downtown from the police department, and they have seen significant reductions as referenced in the council item in the number of calls for service since putting this in place, and they're all collectively recommending that we continue that pilot through the winter to determine if it continues to have the positive impact in the parking ramps, not just in the summer, but in the winter months. That will also help to inform whether or not parking suggests that they would utilize their funds in the enterprise fund in order to make this a part of their ongoing services in future budgets.
Thank you for the additional information. Do we have a motion on F7 become H1?
I'll make a motion to approve F7.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Palmer.
I think this is a great use of funds, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it works out for the winter. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you. I just want to say I'm happy about this because I know that you, Ms. Turi, have received many texts from me, as has Allison Zelms, from the downtown restaurants over the course of the last couple of years, with many photographs of just not very neat things that I have to report, and you guys jump on it right away. I think it's great. So I'm hopeful that this is going to keep our residents, visitors, and patients safer and moving through a much more amenable space when they're downtown. So thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Norton.
I agree with what everyone has said, and I would just add that in the summer, we have SROs who have been available to help with our downtown area. They are now reassigned back to schools. And so I think it's really going to be important for us to keep the staff, the best contracting in place, and really look at numbers and see if we can even manage it with what they have without the SROs. And I'm predicting that we can, because there's less activity perhaps in the winter, but where it does go up is in those parking ramps and on the stairs, which is what this group looks at. So I'm very supportive of this and appreciate your support.
Any other discussion?
Just have a comment. Thank you, ladies. I'm a big supporter of safety. I think that's the job of any city. It should be one of the #1 jobs. So I think this is a good pilot. I just want to, just reiterate, like when we do spend contingency funds, it's good to have this kind of discussion, as in past council who did not vote in block, but actually voted each consent agenda item separately, because the council member I spoke to said that the residents deserved at least acknowledgement, a little discussion on each item. So I think it's always good to fail and, for safety and pull an item just for more information. So yes, I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll move to motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. We turn to H2, which is the old F9, opioid mitigation collaboration and interagency agreement with the Olmsted County Community Outreach Overdose Response Team. Ms. Dennis, can you give a brief explanation as to why you pulled the item?
Yeah, yes, thank you. This is a very important issue, and many people have reached out wanting to know how funds were going to be used. And so I see that was a question asked and answered. But I think it's good to have a little bit more explanation for the record. What, we can do to maximize each dollar of the settlement. And then in the future, maybe looking at energizing tri-government meetings. So we're not islands, that we really can meet every month or bi-weekly with the county school board and have council working with school board members and county commissioners and hopefully address, problems, with prevention and maybe using money more efficiently with a tri-government meeting. So those are the reasons I pulled that item.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on this item?
Motion to approve F9. Second.
Mr. Palmer,
No, it's in the packet.
any other discussion?
I would like to ask, would that be something that our council would like to do, is reinstate the tri-government meeting? I know we tried that very, very briefly. I think that would be I don't know if I want to add, I don't want to add that to this motion.
Just point of order, this is a change, or I think we have a motion, so we should act on that, or unless you're doing an amendment, you're not doing an amendment. I don't.
I'm not going to do amendment to this, I think, but
We should act on it.
just act on this one. Okay.
That would be a separate item of business. Any other discussion? We'll move to the motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. We move to H3, which is the former F10, the Abdo Financial Solutions Change Order for Interim Finance Director Services. Ms. Dennis, would you briefly explain why you have pulled this item?
Thank you. Yes, for the same reason as the other two, for more discussion as well. This was a very huge price tag for this consultant. And one thing that I noted when we look at the council packet, we get the front, the first few pages, which are the agenda. And usually in this agenda, there is a little explanation on what each item is. The one for this item was just a sentence that duplicated itself. It had no numbers, no real depth to it. So you have to go deep down, I believe 137, page 137 or close to that, to find out some of these numbers. And when I talk to people, our previous director for finance had his retirement announced, I believe, quite extensively, before, like not just 2 weeks, but before his retirement in June. And we are still in the process of looking for someone to replace. And I think in-house would be, someone who has the passion and knowledge of this budget and finances. I think would be a great place to start. But the reason I pulled it was the price tag. Just like Ms. McGregor came and spoke, it's just outrageous. I mean, if this individual needed more time and had to go above, the 15, 16 hours a week, I mean, to have a salary that's 700,000 plus a year, or whatever it would be if you calculated full time, it just, I would be incredibly ashamed. I couldn't, how could we tell taxpayers that's kind of, money more than I think the president of the United States or close to it makes. And so I just wanted to pull it to see why we don't have someone already hired, or someone, if right when Mr. Martinson notified, why didn't we have someone starting to be mentored by him to jump in right away when he left? I just have some unanswered questions why this is such a need right now and why we didn't have this come before council before this time as well.
I think that many of those questions were answered through the day, but would a staff member care to take a look at those questions? Thanks, Ms. Elms.
Certainly, Council President, Council Member Dennis, Council Members, Mayor, members of the public. I would just note that, first of all, this isn't a salary. It is contractual services. It's not one individual. It's contractual services with a company that has multiple individuals that assist. It's also not a take-home salary, and we do not pay health insurance, pension, other benefits on something of this nature. That's something that the contracted service takes on. So while it could be compared to a salary, it's not intended to be that, and it's also intended to be an interim solution. But I would turn it over to Aaron Parrish to provide more detail as was provided earlier today, so the public can hear it.
Yeah, Mayor, President, members of the council, appreciate that. And I'll be honest with you, there's no one in this room that would rather not do this more than me. Certainly our hope was that we would have a finance director in place. We went through an initial recruitment. As Councilmember Dennis indicated, we did have great notice by Dale Martinson. He did a great job of trying to position the team for success. We hired somebody, offered the position about a week before he was to start, had some things come up, wasn't able to, report for work, so to speak, due to some personal issues and things like that. So that recruitment wasn't successful and almost successful, but didn't quite get there. We went through a subsequent recruitment. And so in our second recruitment, we actually offered the position to two people. Unfortunately, for different reasons, some personal, some financial, we weren't able to, ultimately come to terms or have someone be willing to accept the position. So very dynamic market. These finance folks are very, in very high demand right now. It's a very competitive labor market for folks. So in the meantime, we've been served just on a limited basis. There are many people on the team covering things right now. We've been served on a limited basis just for those strategic things we have questions with, things that maybe someone on the team doesn't know about, up to 16 hours a week. We haven't always used all that time. So the billing in June was about 13,000. The billing in July was a little bit more as we went through the budget season, et cetera, was about 24,000. And so we just have really been leaning on that as a resource to close the gaps in terms of what we might not have available. So appreciate that this is challenging money to spend. Certainly a case where contracting wouldn't make sense for this function. And we are working toward now a third recruitment. We are looking at a search firm and have our kickoff meeting with them scheduled for tomorrow to help with this third recruitment. But again, just a very competitive spot for this market. We have evaluated the compensation for the position. So maybe with this recruitment, not that we weren't competitive before, it's just really, there's just a lot of things in play here. So appreciate the consideration on this. This particular team does serve many cities. They bring a depth of experience and really have appreciated the work that they've done with us to date.
Thanks for the added information. Is there a motion on this item?
Make a motion for F10 to approve.
Is there a second? Mr. Palmer,
Okay, I think it's been well explained.
any other discussion?
I have a I'm sorry.
Yes,
Claire,
please.
thank you. I don't want to interrupt. Clarification. So there's a recruitment firm and that's separate than, is that separate than this Abido Financial Solutions?
Yes.
How much are we, so we have to hire a firm. How much are we paying for the firm to find?
So with the recruitment firm, our cost projection on that is about $25,000.
Okay, so
But a totally different service here.
okay, so-
We've done that on a limited basis. So generally, we do try to recruit in-house. The first two recruitments, we certainly did facilitate those in-house. But for challenging positions, we have used them in the past. Public Works Director, City Administrator, of course, RPU General Manager was the most recent example of a facilitated recruitment. So generally, we evaluate that case by case. But given where we're at and, sort of that whole definition of just trying something new and not hoping on leaning on what we did in the past, we're just hoping that this can help us yield a better result.
Has there been thoughts of maybe instead of paying a firm 25,000, recruiting, because you said that the pay was in.
Mr. Chair, can I just say, I think the topic we're talking about now is a completely separate one from the item before us today. So I think those are relevant questions, but not on this, what we're voting on. you're talking about a recruitment as opposed to an interim.
Well, the recruitment costs in this is it's gonna be 25,000, thinking we could give someone a $25,000 bonus or something, like just use the money more, I don't know, creatively to make sure someone, you know, if you stay for X amount of time, you get $25,000 bonus instead of using the money for a recruitment firm. And if we've already raised the wage, instead of spending that money, maybe seeing if we could go in-house again. I just feel this price tag is incredibly astronomical, and I just worry that if someone does need more time, you know, even if they don't need more time, this over 28,000 a month for such a limited
So I just say it's
amount
up
of
to
time.
$28,000, as has been explained at the first 2 months. We did not reach that in the first month. It was less than half than that. It's a limited basis. We use them very strategically. It's not intended to be an ongoing solution. And the recommendation from the professional team that is suggesting to come forward with a separate item, which does not need to come to the council because items under $50,000 that are available within the budget are approved through the micro contact process. Something that happens regularly throughout the year. And the recommendation for the cities, the third largest city in Minnesota, is that we need to move forward and still have services available up to that amount per month, but be still strategic about utilizing it in order
Call the
to
question.
maintain all of our bond ratings, et cetera.
The question has been called. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no.
No, nay.
The item is approved. We move then finally to H4, which is the old F11. Contract with Bolton and Menk for design and engineering of the Sixth Street Bridge project. Ms. Dennis, would you briefly explain why you pulled this item?
Yeah, well, thank you. So this is, I mean, it's, you know, we asked if staff could find funding sources, and I know they did a wonderful job getting federal funds and, you know, DMC coming together. But the actual need for the bridge, we haven't voted on. And we haven't, you know, like when it comes to spending this kind of money, this is the vote. And what Casey McGregor came and spoke, I mean, these questions I would like answers to as well. They're very well worded. Thank you. The ones I try to jot down as quickly as I could were like when this was being brought up with the co-design team, who were the co-designers, who paid for them, who selects them, you know, the minutes recorded, you know, for transparency, can we have access to those? How do you become a co-designer? Those kind of questions too, and how the process is being done. I think there's a lot of questions, and to just vote on this in a consent agenda item doesn't do the community, I think, justice. We need to have a little discussion on if this bridge is needed, and if and some of those questions about how co-designers are, you know, who they are. They're already getting a salary, a stipend, and meals, just so people have accountability, as we do with city council and boards and commissions, where we can watch meetings, recorded meetings. Why don't we have that for co-design team? So those are some of the questions I.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this
Make a
item?
motion to approve F11.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Palmer?
We have had to vote on this before, and the Ms. McGregor did bring up some good points, and I think maybe we need to have some information come back to us on co-design. And I think it's been frustrating for people to not know who they are, how they're designed, not just on this project, but all our projects. So maybe in the near future, we can have that more information to us.
Thank you. Mr. Bransford?
I just wanted to so the Sixth Street Bridge was adopted in the 2021 downtown waterfront southeast master plan. So maybe this is a nuanced question, but isn't that an implicit approval that this is a part of the plan and therefore needed?
Councilmember Bransford, it is. You've also had several actions on it, including discussion of the federal funds that were awarded of $20 million, as well as a prior extension of design services. And this is additional design services that would bring it to more final design, primarily through professional contracted services with community engagement and additional co-design.
Ms. Kirkpatrick?
Thank you. I've spoken with the Slatterly Park Neighborhood Association and they still have concerns about the size of this bridge. So I guess I'm curious as the design goes forward, looking at the packet and acknowledging the design that is there, how many changes can be made or will their voices be heard in the process here as we go towards finalizing the design of this bridge? We have concerns about novice and family riders on Sixth Street, especially between Third and 15th Avenues Southeast, with the width of the street. We have concerns about the multimodal lanes that may be on the path there. And then just the increased pollution, of course, and the increased traffic that's going to come from the additional automobiles on the street. Can staff address any of those? How might those concerns be acknowledged and or worked through?
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Kirkpatrick, members of the council. Let me just reiterate the engagement efforts that have happened up to this point. I do appreciate the comments that were shared by the council members and Administrator Zelms in terms of the 3 touch points that indicated approval and direction of this project. Leading up to this standpoint of unanimous adoption of the small area plan, which had extensive engagement in throughout that process, that also recommended this bridge. When we think about engagement, we think about the IAP2 spectrum of engagement, which is everything from inform, engage, collaborate, all the way to all 5 stages of engagement. So not only in the small area plan adoption, where we had hundreds of participants, we had online participation, we had committee meetings, we had coordination meetings, we had presentations, we had community partners, we had members of both Slatterly Park and Sunnyside neighborhood representatives be on the project steering committee to help guide this project along. We had then when we went and advanced the design of not only 6th Street, it's 6th Street Bridge, it's 6th Street neighborhood safety improvements and riverfront connectivity. So let's not lose sight of the fact that this is more than just a bridge. This is taking a project where right now there's 1 controlled intersection and creating 7 or 8 controlled intersections in a neighborhood by a school, in an area that is set for redevelopment. And through that process, there were 9 open houses and 4 neighborhood meetings, committee meetings, meetings with the school, Riverside School, with UMR, with the rail, with the Corps of Engineer, community surveys, all of that feeding into what will be the next contract, which is included, which Ian Cochran is online and Josh Johnson is here. What really rose to the top for us in terms of Bolton and Menk was their commitment to continue that engagement process. And it's rather robust. It's not only the co-design process, it's open houses, it's neighborhood meetings, it's stakeholder meetings, it's pop-up meetings, it's other surveys, it's other online and mechanisms to continue to help refine the project to get it to a place where we can let it out for bid and be in compliant with their federal funding obligations that we have. I'll turn it over to Josh Johnson and Ian Corcoran to add additional comments.
Yeah, Cindy, good evening, council members, council president, mayor. I think Cindy handled it quite well. I mean, the whole goal and objective of the bridge is really to connect a walkable, mixed use, very livable, very close to amenities, schools, jobs, everything else. So it's not that the bridge is going to create more miles traveled. We're really hoping to create more housing and do infill to get more people actually walking to those services. But it does provide an incredible connection and really a catalyst to develop that site, as well as create more inlets and outlets and connectivity out to Broadway. I would just add, there's a lot of questions about co-design. We are happy to come back. I mean, we're always excited to talk about co-design. We're really proud of the process, and we've been spotlighted nationally for our process. There's actually a co-design toolkit that was developed by our partners at DMC. We partnered with the University of Minnesota Design Center in Chalmotella, who's online right now, can also speak to any direct questions, but happy to come back with you. It's a very transparent process, and I think it would be worthwhile to go deeper in depth on it.
I can also answer some very specific questions in terms of how they're selected. There is a process we look for where there are gaps in terms of people that have traditionally not been represented in these processes, people who are not able to come to public meetings such as this and give input, people who, for whatever reason, whether it's transportation or they're working odd shifts, people who have traditionally been disconnected from process to give input. And so we take a lot of care into making sure that we have not only ethnic diversity, but ability, in past co-design processes, we've had people with sight impairment. We have people representing LGBTQ communities, art communities, elderly communities, how they're paid from the project. It's out of the project budget. We also consider what might be barriers to their participation. So if there is a transportation voucher that's needed in order for them to be able to participate in the co-design process, if there is childcare, sometimes childcare is an option. We try and tailor the co-design to what the project needs, and it comes out of the project budget. But as Josh said, we're happy to come back and give a lot more detail to the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would echo both council members Dennis and Palmer, and would love to hear more information or publicize more of the co-design information. I think we do ourselves a disservice by not letting the community know to the extent by which we are trying to bring many voices to the table and ensure that we have the very best project. I'm really excited about this project, having been pastor of a church right across the river for 24 and plus years. I think this will be a great thing for that community. But the more that we can tell the community about it while we are in process, I think that we will aid ourselves in the process. Mayor Norton.
Well, I will just add, and I think the point that we don't talk enough about this is worth thinking more about. We've been honored by National League of Cities for this work. We were the only award winner that year, and for cities our size. So we do have a lovely, huge award that we got. And we've been recognized several other times by other organizations for our co-design work. It is outstanding. And there are people whose voices are always heard. And there are people whose voices that unless we reach out and actively recruit and include them, their voices don't get heard. So that's something I'm proud of that we do in this city. And I think other people should know more about it. So I think, I'm certainly supportive. I've been going around the country giving talks about this very issue. And it makes me sad to hear that people in our own council don't feel like they know enough about this project, or residents in our city. So maybe we just need to have a community presentation at some point about co-design and the recognition it's received and why it's something other cities are emulating.
Dennis.
Great, thank you so much. Well, first, I just want to apologize if I misspoke about the voting of the bridge. When I saw this come out, it looked like everything was being advertised as a done deal right away when we got the funding before we voted. And that was kind of, I don't know, a little bit upsetting, because you don't want to have the public think it's a done deal before we voted. And that happened on news and broadcast when the funding came through. So, but I apologize for misspeaking. The other thing I would like to do is I think co-design is a wonderful idea, and a lot of people have concerns because they do not think it's a transparent process. So I would like to move to amend the motion to include that all co-design meeting minutes, recruitment process, and actual meetings be available and transparent to the public.
Is there a second?
Where are those things recorded now? Already?
So I think it's really important.
Nothing.
This isn't even germane to the issue.
I'm just
Point of
curious.
order, just on, can we make a motion on something that's not relevant to what the topic is? We're trying to approve the going out to bid or approving a bid for contract. And now we're going back to saying the process was done wrong. And I don't think they should be connected.
Okay, I accept what you're saying. I agree with you. I'm just curious about that question. I can retract my second, but I'm just curious. Are there minutes and notes taken that are available to the public currently from these design meetings, co-design meetings?
So I will say we take notes, and this is where I'll lean into Chow to help better answer this question. I would say if you are going to make that a requirement of future co-design efforts, that you suddenly open it up to the public, meaning in co-design, there's a lot of emphasis placed on building trust among the co-designers, because remember, these are people who for whatever reason are not empowered to have the ability to speak at a meeting like this or other public meetings where majority voices are heard, but their voices are grossly underrepresented. And so co-design is not the only engagement process we use, but is an important process along with all of the other processes that we use that allows us to get those underrepresented groups' voices heard. And without that trust and without that ability to know that they are speaking in a safe space, which oftentimes does not happen if they're being recorded, because that trust has not been built, then we are not doing true service to the co-design process. Now, making that information available after the fact, our notes of like, here's what came out of the co-design process. That is what we offer when we bring projects forward, when we bring design recommendations forward. We say, out of all of these engagement efforts, including what we heard from underrepresented groups in the co-design process, this is the project we're bringing forward. This is the recommendation that we're bringing forward. I hope that helps.
That helps a lot. Thank you for answering that. So I'll retract my second one.
Do we have a second to the motion? Do we have a second to the motion? Having no second, the amendment dies. Is there more discussion? We'll move to the vote. All in favor of H4, I believe it is, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion passes. Thank you much. We go to ordinance first and second readings. I turn it over to Attorney Michael Spindler-Craig, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is one first reading this evening, item J1, an ordinance annexing to the city of Rochester approximately 47.94 acres located directly north of Silver Creek Road Northeast. Moving on to the second readings, the first item is K1, an ordinance annexing to the city of Rochester approximately 47.43 acres located south of Scenic Point Drive Southwest and west of Scenic View Drive Southwest.
Move approval.
Second.
Are there questions for Mr. Spindler-Craig?
I'd just like to make a comment if I may. In keeping with who you know that I am. The city of Minneapolis is roughly 58 square miles with a population just above 425,000. St. Paul is about 56 square miles with a population just above 307,000. Currently, Rochester is 56 square miles with just over 127,000 people. We speak about sustainability and resiliency. We talk about a budget that, quite frankly, cannot actually maintain our infrastructure currently without going out for external funding to maintain our infrastructure. So what is the true need for this expansion? And I think we should be focusing on developments that already utilize the infrastructure that we have and follow a precautionary principle with regard to our geology. We need to ensure that we have a safe housing situation that is not impacted by development into geological areas that may negatively impact existing neighborhoods and groundwater. So that is my only comment. Thank you.
Any other discussion or questions?
Just one comment. Again, I appreciate Council Member Kirkpatrick's view of like our size, and we should be able to support a higher population. And it is kind of tried and true that you would get a more efficient city that way. That's one of the reasons the way we passed the comprehensive plan back in 2018 before our time. Some of these general development plans were done before that. And this specific one, they've gone out of their way to do their water through other means, and they're paying for extra sewer to come a different way. So I'm comfortable that this is being done well. But I think the things you're asking for in terms of growing within it is consistent with our comprehensive plan and the way we plan to go forward.
Thank you. Mr. Palmer.
Yeah, I don't agree. And I think that your thought process that Minneapolis is this side and St. Paul is this side, that you're not taking in effect that they have a huge amount of suburbs. And I don't think that the city of Rochester wants to have a huge amount of suburbs that are feeding in, and bedroom communities that are feeding in, and having a MAC that's running their zoning and their planning and their sewers. I think Rochester wants to be able to grow as it sees as efficient. The studies that we've paid for that says that we're not having enough single family dwellings is appalling. It's less than half of what the survey said that we need to have. We have people who don't have homes, and you want them to live where? There isn't anywhere for them to live. So to me, that this is frustrates me when I hear people compare us to Minneapolis and St. Paul. St. Paul is going out for 1% sales tax to do their roads because that's what they want to do, because they haven't invested in their roads. They are 120 years behind in fixing their roads. I don't want to be like St. Paul. Nobody's living in Rochester wants to be like St. Paul. You want to grow and make it a good city that we have. Comparing our apples, our acreage to the population is mind-boggling goofy. Makes no sense whatsoever, and I think is offensive when you say things like that. But that's just my opinion.
Mr. Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. I encourage you to go back and review the video and listen to what you just said. Thank you.
Any other discussion? To the vote, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
Nay?
Motion carries. We move to the second reading.
Item K2, an ordinance rezoning approximately 1.79 acres of land from R4 high density residential to mixed FR mixed use downtown fringe, and amending ordinance number 4478 known as the Unified Development Code of the City of Rochester, Minnesota.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Keen.
We've had good discussion on this before, and this is the second reading to get it into the ordinance, and I'm going to support it.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? We'll move to the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. K3.
Item K3, an ordinance amending the titles of and sections of 11-10-2 through 11-10-4 and amending sections 11-10-5 through 11-10-7 of chapter 11-10 of Title 11 of the Rochester Code of Ordinances relating to residential permit parking zones.
So move approval.
Is there a second? Second, Mr. Keen.
Nothing to add.
Any discussion? Any discussion? We'll move to the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion carries. Thank you very much. We, I believe, do not have any other tabled items. So we move to other business. I understand that Ms. Dennis has other business.
Thank you so much. So again, I always have other business in case people have questions that come for open comment. I feel that we need to make sure that those questions are answered. I don't know if all the questions were answered about the co-design thing, but first I want to jump in a couple things before I jump into some questions from open comment. Safe City Nights, I had a question because the Safe City Nights that's being canceled is in Ward 6 for tomorrow. Is it possible to have that postponed to another date? Because there is a lot of people who walk in Ward 6 to that Safe City Nights, and it's a very meaningful event. And I understand the severe heat advisory is to be taken seriously, that we want to make sure that everyone's safe. But I want to also give people in that neighborhood and throughout Ward 6, throughout the city, the opportunity to partake in this wonderful program.
Councilmember Dennis, council members, mayor, that's the question that we will need to direct to the police department. Since we didn't have it ahead of time, we'll get back to you, but there are a significant number of sponsors and other resources that go into that might be challenging to reschedule, and they're intended to happen during the summer when school is not in session, which is part of why they're at schools before school is in session. So I think there could be some challenges to doing that.
I think that would be a very good thing to look into, and might not be the full blown Safe City Nights if not everyone can attend, but some of the sponsors I believe would probably say, yeah, we can just do it a week later or.
We will
something.
check with the department and not depend on assumptions, but I believe they would have looked at whether they would reschedule versus cancel, and all of those things were likely taken into consideration, but we will ask them to get back to the entire city council with more information.
Okay, thank you. And probably a little time sensitive because of the summer is going by fast. And then another comment about the email that we received on Wednesday, the 16th. We had a wonderful study session last week about communication and how we should honor people who communicate differently throughout with our strengths. And then the question was brought to us if there was any other training that we think would be beneficial. I feel very strongly, as I have for the last 2.5 years, that sensitivity training would be very needed. Cultural sensitivity, disability sensitivity. I think that would be, just for the record, again, as I have mentioned before, that I think that could have prevented things like the censure, prevented things that would have saved a lot of taxpayer dollars. So I would like to put on the record that that kind of training would be my vote to include, as City Administrator mentioned in the study session, that training is an emphasis, is a priority of the city. That is one that I believe the city council lacks. And then the Move with Mayor, I just want to say thank you for including the coloring book. I know that was the issue that I had with my children last year, was that the app was very difficult to use and kids weren't able to use that. So that's what I had brought up to you and the mayor's department. So I appreciate that that was taken to heart when I had talked with you about that. And so thank you for that addition to the Move with Mayor. Hopefully more people of many ability levels will be able to participate. And then again, I like try government. I can reach out in that in the future. Before I get to
If I might, I think it would be important to talk about tri-government as it's continued to be raised, as if that was a every 2-week meeting that was always approved as a quarterly meeting, and it required the buy-in of all of the groups. And Rochester Public Schools and Olmsted County found that the way that we were doing that was not effective. And the recommendation is that individual school board members and council members and commissioners get together. And that has been happening, I think, for any number of the team. And we will be getting updates at your full council meeting from the school superintendent and the county administrator coming later in the fall. That's on your study session schedule.
I'm glad. I think we can always try it again. You know, we don't want to be in silos as a government agency. So I'm glad that it's being promoted, and hopefully all council are meeting up with county commissioners and school board members.
On an individual basis, there's no tri-government. The council voted to end that, as did the other bodies.
And thank you. And then I do have a motion, but before I do that, I want to jump in. Some of the things that were brought up, I know, talk about transparency. Gail Ms. Matheson came to speak. I think that's something that probably should be a little bit more laid out on when people request information. If it's able to be given, I would encourage all staff and council to be as transparent as possible with their communication. And then
Point of order, since there's been a statement made with an assumption to it, I think it's important that we're able to answer that publicly, since it's a misstatement. We have provided the records that are available. Each phone company has different records that remain available. They aren't available to be sent. And I believe the mayor would also like to comment, considering, and so we're answering the question right now that was asked as a statement, but in a question.
So I resent an implication that we did not fulfill the request. It was fulfilled with all of the information in the time period that was available to Ms. Madison. So she has everything that was available to me that I could get.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you. I will definitely screenshot and send that information like that if people require as well. I think that's good. And then Ms. McGregor spoke about the marijuana, and I know that bill was on a state level, but when it does come with, I believe, the Minnesota Constitution about being able to not need a peddler's permit, is that something that city can do, is to regulate or at least, I know that the police department have some looking into that, because I've heard about that with kind of a loophole in the bill as well, that if you're selling your produce, you can just sell marijuana in your garden as well. Has that been looked at? It's something that the city is able to regulate or has, for enforcement. Just that question.
Councilmember, Council President, Mayor Norton, members of the council, you've had two public hearings, a public hearing and a continued public hearing on that, and the council's action to place a moratorium on any license or any businesses coming into place within the city limits provides the timeframe to be able to look into all of those questions that have been asked. A part of what we would be looking at is exactly what Ms. McGregor mentioned about the distances from schools and churches and things of that nature, and wanting to make sure that through our zoning code, because we can regulate the time, place, and manner, but we cannot, cannot provide a license that will all be happening through the State Office of Cannabis Management that does not yet exist. As we have looked at what has come from the state as a requirement, it does appear that they are not counting this as agricultural. So that's why they have an Office of Cannabis Management license. So it will need to be read clearly. But everything that I've heard is that this is considered a very specific item and not considered agricultural practice. It's considered under the Office of Cannabis Management. So those are all things that we will be looking into, and appreciate the council's action to place a moratorium, even though a business couldn't have located here. I think it sends a very clear message to those who might want to be opening a business that we will be looking at all of those factors about time, place, and manner, which the state legislation, which is a requirement for all cities and counties, that we can, at least from a time, place, and manner perspective, be looking at where it is and is not appropriate within the city limits of Rochester as much as feasible in accordance with the law.
Having listened to a League of Minnesota Cities attorney this morning on the very issue that Councilmember Dennis brings up, people have perceived that selling as an agricultural product differently. So far, the force of law has fallen in the way that Administrator Zelms implies.
Thank you. And then the very last, I appreciate that. I think there's maybe a little more clarification needed, but to move on to the last, I would, since this was not germane to the original F10, I would like to make a motion to, in the future, that all co-design teams have their meeting minutes, recruitment process, and actual meetings made available to the public.
Is there a second to the motion? Is there a second to the motion? The motion dies for lack of a second. Is there any other business?
I guess I'd just like to comment on your motion, Ms. Dennis. I think I heard staff suggest that there's plenty of room in study sessions to learn more about the co-design process and what's going to be upcoming. So perhaps a better time for your motion might be after we have a study session to learn more. I don't know.
Councilmember Kirkpatrick, council members, mayor, we don't necessarily have plenty of time near term to do that, but we can look for time within a future study session, as has been noted in a number of those. Some of our members like to leave exactly at 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock when those happen. So it does constrain some of the time that we have available in order to do that at a study session. But we'll be happy to get you an update in one of your Friday updates with some of the Q&A for that. Also, some of the reminders about why it's so important to build trust with communities who have felt that they are either underrepresented or aren't even comfortable coming to a council meeting or a more public meeting, and what the implications for some of that might be, and also be able to discuss that in more of a full fashion. We've had some brief updates about it, but it sounds like we would want to dedicate a little bit more time to it. I did just also want to note, although it wasn't asked, this is the first meeting that you're going live on the fully integrated and updated video system that was worked on all weekend. There was a disruption during the meeting, and I'll just note that is not our system. That is our friends at Olmsted County continuing to schedule their meeting rebroadcast to start in the middle of the city council meeting. And so we continue to work with our friends at Olmsted County to please not interrupt the council meetings with the rebroadcast. And we'll continue to do that. But that's part of shared services, is that we sometimes get the interruption. We were able to bring it back quickly. But that was due to a service interruption because the Olmsted County meeting was scheduled to rebroadcast during the middle of this meeting. So we'll continue to work on that with our partners, but we do have the full upgrade in place, and appreciate the team that worked on that to get that in between a county meeting and a city council meeting.
Thank you. Any other business from the council?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The motion carries. We are adjourned.